Hi everybody, this is Greg with The Dice Must Flow, and welcome back to another episode. And today we're going to take a look at the latest expansion for Shadespire, and this is the Sepulchral Guard. And as you may or may not know, I was a Tomb Kings player back in the days, and have a Tomb King army that I started and was working on, and so was definitely interested to take a look at the new skeleton minis that they're having in this set, and the new cards that will be coming out that came out with it. So let's go ahead and open this up, take a look at the minis and the cards and actions and characters that are involved. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the Sepulchral Guard Shadespire expansion. Now, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 miniatures in this expansion, but it looks like it's only 2 sprues. 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, definitely. So looks like most of these are going to be 2 pieces, or some of them are only 1 piece, maybe. And there's going to be 2 decks of cards. So let's go ahead and get these guys put together, and then we'll be back talking about the minis and the deck. Okay, let's go ahead and get these guys put together. And I should mention I've gone ahead and inverted the camera from the way I normally do. A lot of times I have my hands will get in the way, and so if the angle looks kind of funky, that's what's going on. But maybe let me know about this review in the comments, whether you think that this helped, or does it actually hinder the view of what's going on. So as you can see, they have a nice little booklet that came with it, talking about each of the pieces and what it goes with. So we're just gonna, that was the base. We're gonna get 21 and 20 piece out here, and that's this guy. And this is probably the most biggest model. The most biggest. Boy, that was really good language. This is probably the biggest model in the set. Alright, I went and got a hobby knife. Try and clean up some of this flashing. Okay. And just like trying to get them over here. Just like the other Shadespire minis, these guys do snap together. I'm going to go ahead and put a dab of glue on just to help. Okay, finally got him to snap in. There you go. Go ahead and put him on the base, move him out of the way. Alright, and our first guy's done. I'm going to go ahead and get these other guys, and I'm probably going to mute the camera here, and we'll zip through while I build these. Okay, we're back and we've got the guys built, so I'm going to kind of zoom in on them here, show you the detail. And so these guys were pretty easy to build, and I really like the detail on them compared to some of the older skeletons that we might have seen in the past. I really like the guy that's crawling out of the ground. Kind of like late to work, late to rise. And so that's it for these minis. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the cards that came with the guard set. Okay, let's take a look at the Sepulchral Guard cards. There's 7 characters. And the leader is the Sepulchral Warden. And he has a attack range of 2. Attacks with 2 hammers and does 2 damage. And that's basically the most damage all these guys are going to do. So that's one other thing we should note is right away, each of these guys, the move is only 2 on all of them. And the 3 petitioners all are the same, and they basically have only 2 hit points each. So they're slow, and they have not very many hit points, and they have an attack for 2 swords, and it only does 1 damage. The Prince of Dust has an attack which does hammers, only does 1 damage, but it also has a knockback of 1. The Champion does 2 damage, but has a cleave, and the Harvester just does 2 damage also. However, the Harvester targets all adjacent enemy fighters, and you roll for each. And that's going to be important later because there are some cards that are going to give you an advantage when you attack multiple people. So let's go ahead and look at the special characteristics these guys have. The Sepulchral Warden is really the main one, and he's got for an action he can place a friendly fighter that was removed from the game back onto a starting position. And also for an action you can choose 2 friendly fighters and have them make a move action. So that's a way that these guys, even with 7 guys, you still only have the 4 actions, so it's going to be a way for you to be able to move your characters a little bit better. So let's talk about the inspired side. How do you get inspired? These guys, they're all going to get inspired when they are returned to the battlefield, when they die and are brought back by the Sepulchral Warden. And the Sepulchral Warden, he's going to get inspired when he brings back 2 friendly fighters. Taking a quick look, we see that all the guys increase their speed by 1. And they're all a lot of them are getting extra attack dice. You can see they all get extra attack dice. And so that's basically what happens with Inspired. They don't change any defensive characteristics or hit points or anything. And so that's the characters. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the special cards for the Sepulchral Guard. Okay, we have the objective cards for the Sepulchral Guard, and you can see that by having the skeleton icon. And so let's take a quick look at some of them. The Invigorated Dead, score this in the 3rd end phase if all 3 of your surviving fighters, or at least 3, are inspired. At least 3. All of them, and it has to be at least 3, and you get 1. I kind of don't like this card, even though you can bring people back at the end. This is going to be one of those, if you draw it early, not going to be very useful, and so I don't think that's one that you're going to want to deal with. The Undead Swarm, score this in an end phase if each enemy fighter is adjacent to at least 2 friendly fighters. Again, it's going to be hard to arrange. You're going to have to move and have all your guys around people. Maybe if you're playing against Stormcast, but again, if you're playing against perhaps a Corn Force with 5 guys, you're going to have all your guys around them and have 2 next to each of them. Kind of hard to arrange. Not too inspired by that. This one's going to be difficult to arrange, but will be good. Maybe worth putting in your deck. Score this in an end phase if you hold every objective. You do have enough guys to get on all 5 objectives. So that's maybe one that you could look at, be a big victory point or glory point that you could get. This one, I think that's probably doable, especially with your captain. Score this in an end phase if all of your surviving fighters, at least 5, made a move action in the preceding action phase. So I guess you couldn't do it on turn 1, but you could do it turn 2 and later. Fearless in Death, score this in the 3rd end phase if there's only 1 friendly fighter on the battlefield. Boy, that just seems too situational. More able bodies, score this in an end phase if you took out 2 or more enemy fighters in this preceding action phase. Again, not too situational, very situational. So I guess and this one is score in the 3rd end phase if you have 4 or more surviving fighters. And none are inspired. That seems almost impossible, especially with those 2 hit point guys. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm not too impressed with the specific Sepulchral Guard objectives. I don't think I'd really be choosing any of them. Maybe the 1 or 2 that I talked about. Okay, let's look at the cards that are objective cards that any deck can use. And I guess the ones right away that kind of jump out at me is Tactical Supremacy for 3 and 4. And that guy is if you hold objective 3 and 4, you get 2. So maybe it's the same as holding a single objective. The Bloodless one, score in an end phase if no fighter suffered any damage in the preceding action phase. This you could have if you're early on in the game and you're slow, so you're maybe not going to get into attacking somebody right away. Score this in an end phase if the same friendly fighter has held the same objective at the end of 2 consecutive action phases. So that's 2 action phases. That's almost a guaranteed, I would think. So that's probably pretty good. A Crushing Force. Score this immediately. And then these are always good. Score this immediately if a friendly fighter makes a successful attack that deals at least twice as much damage as is needed to take their target out of action. So somebody can reduce somebody to 1 hit point, and then somebody does 2 damage to them, you would score this immediately. So score immediately. I love those guys. They always give a lot. They're very useful because you're going to get that glory right away, and then you can lay an upgrade down. The Reaper, score this immediately. Again, love the immediatelys. If a friendly fighter's attack takes out 2 or more enemy fighters out of action. And so that was important. We talked about earlier that the Reaper actually had an attack that could hit multiple people. And so that might be one you want to put into your undead deck here. This one, score in an end phase if your opponent played no power cards in the preceding action phase. I don't find that that's going to ever happen very often. But the Planta Standard is pretty good. Score this in an end phase if your leader is holding an objective in enemy territory. And then the Flawless Strategy, score this in an end phase if you score 2 or more other objective cards in this phase. No, that's pretty not very handy because you're really not scoring. Usually you're not scoring all 3 objectives. And a Swift Advance, score this in an end phase if all of your surviving fighters are in enemy territory. That could be useful, especially if you're building you shift the board a certain way and you're starting up front and you have a smaller force and you just kind of push on in. Because you don't have to be, like I said, these are not skeletons again. So let's take a look at the cards that are upgrades for the Sepulchral Guard. A lot of these you can see they're restricted, so they have to go on a special character. So I kind of don't like that because immediately if you lose that guy, you're kind of stuck with a card. However, you do have the ability to bring somebody back, so that's always a good thing. Did like this Remembered Shield. This fighter's defense characteristic changes to a shield instead of just the dodge. The champion can have a charge where the fighter's attack with range of 1 or 2 gets +1 damage. And as we said, these guys didn't have a lot of damage, and so when they make a charge, he makes a charge, he can do that. This Fatal Strike seems also very good for the champion. Make this attack during an attack action that takes this fighter out of action before they're removed from the battlefield. So it's kind of like they got hit, they go down to 0 hit points, they go away, and he gets a final attack. So I do like that. However, when the guys are brought back, they're not going to have these upgrades on them, and so it's really a one-time use. Focused attack, that's going to be very situational because it's going to potentially give you somebody that gives you cleave. However, cleave doesn't work against people that just are dodge only, so this is really only going to work against the Stormcast force that's out there right now. Well, and maybe the orcs. I don't have the orcs yet, so we don't know about that. This guy gives +2 to a move, which is really important. So definitely I'd probably take that with these skeletons. And the other one that looks very helpful is this Helpful Whispers. If this fighter has no adjacent friendly fighters, rolls of support are a success when they make an attack action. So even though you don't have support, you're going to get it. And so that seems like that's very important. So definitely would consider putting that in any deck. So we have the ploys out here that are specific to the Sepulchral Guard. I like the ploys for the Guard much better than their objectives. But let's take a look. So this clawing hands ones, it happens when each friendly fighter not on the battlefield is considered to be supporting the first attack action in the next activation. So if you have 2 guys dead, you're going to get a double support. That seems pretty good. Terrifying Screams, choose an enemy fire and push them 1 hex. Could push somebody off an objective. That's pretty good. Swift Evasion, choose 1 friendly fighter and push them up to 2 hexes. New position must be further away from all enemy fighters. That's probably pretty good if you're in trouble. Again, that's essentially double moving because your move is only 2. Ceaseless Attacks seems very good. Play this after a fighter's attack action. Make an attack with another friendly fighter. So you'd have to have 2 guys next to him, but you're going to get 2 attacks, and so that's always good. The Spectral Form lets you move through somebody. The Bone Shrapnel is basically when somebody kills you or a skeleton, you can play this card and the guy that killed him is going to take 1 damage, so it's kind of a damage shield. And the Necromancer command lets people take an extra, makes re-roll your attack if you failed. And so those are the specific cards for the Sepulchral Guard, the specific ploy cards. And, most of them are pretty good. I like them. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the generic ploy cards. There's some really good ones in here and some not so good. I guess I'll start with not so good. I don't think Fortify is very good. Friendly fighters holding objectives have +1 defense for the next activation. And if it was +1 defense, that'd be okay, but it's the next activation. So you play that, somebody's probably just going to play somebody else, activate and attack somebody else. And so that's very situational. If they only have 1 guy left, and that guy's the only guy that can attack you, I don't know. Probably would just pass on that. This Shattering Terrain seems very good. Any fighters that makes a move action or are pushed or driven back in the next activation suffer 1 damage. Stumble. Play this after a friendly fighter's attack action drives an enemy fighter back. If they're driven back, an additional hex in the same direction. Scavenge. This one is really good. Play this after a friendly fighter's attack action that takes an adjacent enemy fighter with an upgrade out of action. Gain an additional glory point. And so that's the theme in some of these here is that you can gain glory by playing a ploy. And that is very good because you're always trying to get your glory points. You can do this ploy and immediately get a glory point and then play an upgrade. The Mighty Swing, your first attack action with a range characteristic of 1 and the next activation targets all adjacent enemy fighters and roll for each. So there was that objective card where you could kill multiple people. This might be a way of getting that. Forceful Denial. This is one that I see in every deck. I think you're going to have this card in every single deck. Play this when an opponent plays a ploy. Roll a defense die on a roll of a shield or a critical. That ploy has no effect. And that is just very, very powerful. So it's only a 50% chance, but it's a 50% chance to stop something really bad probably from happening to you. And then the other one I want to talk about is Time Trap. And Time Trap is basically the ability to choose a fighter. They can take an action, skip your next activation. You cannot play this card after your 4th activation. So what does that mean? Basically means you're going to activate somebody, you're going to play this card, and then you're going to get to go again with another activation. So you're basically going to get a double turn. And for that, cost of that is you lose your next activation. So, you know, in Age of Sigmar, you're always wanting to set up that double turn. And, you know, like from my card playing with Magic the Gathering, any time thing or letting you take double turns or any games that let you do that, that card is always strong because you can basically end the game with it or get 2 attacks against somebody before they're able to do anything back. And so I would expect to see this card in every single deck from now on. So between that and Trust the Luck, those 2 cards probably in every deck. And finally we have the generic upgrade cards. And the first one, the Cataphragm's Plate. This is interesting because playing this card by itself does nothing. However, if you get more and more relics added, you're just going to accumulate more and more power. One of which is gain 4 glory points if you had 6 relics out on the board. Or if this fighter has them added to him. But I don't know of any other Cataphragm relic that's out there right now. Again, I said I don't have the orcs yet, so I'm missing that probably if there's one in there. So right now I wouldn't be taking this, but I would look for, as these relics cards get added, that's going to be a potential deck builder that somebody's going to have.
Moving on, I want to talk about the Shade Glass Sword. I don't think that this is very good. I mean, yes, it does give you 3 hammer attack and 2 damage, and on a crit it does an additional damage, but it's a one-shot item. Once you use that sword, boom, it blows up and you're done.
The Blessed Armor, really like this guy because essentially it's a heal. When you roll a crit for your fighter, when they are targeted by an attack action, remove 1 wound token from them before any damage is dealt. So it's a potential for a heal, and I think that's always good. The Army of 1, if this fighter is the last friendly fighter on the battlefield, they have a +1 defense and all their attack actions have +1 die. Again, I could see this being a Stormcast type card, and you're really going to make that last guy tough to kill. Sixth Sense, your opponents can never consider a dual support as a success for an attack. And so I see that as being good because it's going to remove that ability for dual support. Again, probably a Stormcast force might be looking at this because everybody typically outnumbers them. And so they would have this ability there. The Dazzling Key. If this fighter is holding objective 4 in the 3rd end phase, score 2 glory points. And so it's a way to get an additional 2 glory points. It's basically another objective that you can hold by having that on the fighter. The Soul Trap looks pretty good also. During an attack action or ploy that takes this fighter out of action, roll a defense die. If you roll a shield or exclamation, which is the critical, they suffer no damage and are not taken out of action. And then you discard this upgrade. So basically any attack that's going to kill somebody is going to keep, this card will keep them from dying. You remove this card and then they're back. They're basically still there. And so that's pretty much what I saw in the generic upgrades. And so that concludes our look at the Shadespire Sepulchral Guard. I hope you found this review useful.